Do you know who Mr. Leitch is?
Yeah, he's the school janitor.
Yeah, he's our school's janitor, right?
I don't know Mr. Leitch too well, but you know, every time I see him, I'll say, "Hey, Mr. Leitch," and he'll say, "Hey, how you going? How you doing, bud?"
Maybe twice a week I'll say hi to him. He's usually the one who approaches me. He says hi, so
that's nice.
He's a nice guy.
So I met him this year. I see him, you know, I'm going to say sort of every day for a little bit. I don't know him personally outside of school. Just getting to know him as a colleague. Miss Hunt Gibbons, who's our previous principal, had a chance to ask her a little bit about Mr. Leitch, and I heard great things about him. Hard worker, you know, gets things done whenever you need it done, and works sort of has been here for a number of years, working tirelessly for the school.
Every school needs at least one person to keep it going. Janitors, custodians, and caretakers work tirelessly behind the scenes of our schools, keeping them clean and keeping them working. At Oakville Trafalgar High School, our caretaker is a man named Rick Leitch, who has been working at OT for longer than most people know, and does much more for OT than most people think. We talked with our principal, Mr. Phillips, as well as our teacher, Mr. D'Alessio, to learn more about his role.
Well, he's always solving problems. Like if there's no heat in a classroom, he's got to be the one that has to try to adjust it. Lights, electricity, like it's not just cleaning the school.
We think of a custodial job as being more about sort of the garbage or the mess, but it's the operational side of the building, you know, so that our heating and air conditioning plant works. And so I know nothing about any of those things. And so if there's an issue where a room is too hot or a room is too cold when the weather gets better, he's the guy we go to for all of those issues.
It seems clear that our school caretaker isn't just cleaning up hallways or throwing out garbage. He's doing much more. We went to Mr. Leitch's office to talk to him, first about how he originally came to OT.
I chose not to go to school. In my days, if you didn't go to school, you got a job. It's different now, you guys. You guys got to finish high school and you got to do college. My day. And what I did is, I was 24 years old, and I put an application. The school board phoned me and said, "Do you plan to go back to school?" Because if you do, because you had to be in school for 4 years, I wouldn't even got this job now. I had to go back and finish high school on my own. I worked apprentice mechanic for a year. It wasn't my thing. Then I built chainsaws. Actually, the last job I had I built chainsaws. I used to work for a place called Dessa, and I used to rebuild chainsaws. And they offered me the service manager's job in Rexdale. And it was too far to go, and then this came up in the paper, and my dad, he was actually said to me, benefits is a big thing, take the job and work part-time. Well, what I do is, like, I have a control system. If, like, somebody's hot or cold is on a computer, I just, say somebody's cold on 220. I go into it, I look what's wrong. If I can fix it, I fix it. If not, I call a contractor.
This system makes Mr. Leitch's job a lot easier, but there's still a lot more to running the school. After our interview, Mr. Leitch took us around the building and showed us all of the various mechanical rooms and areas where the machinery that runs the school is located. As you can see, there's quite a lot that goes on behind the scenes at OT. Every piece of equipment plays an important role, and Mr. Leitch is solely responsible for keeping them running. Listening to him talk, it turns out that years ago the custodial staff at OT was very different and featured many more people than it does now.
Years ago, when I started here, I used to have 12 full-time people. Used to have 2 people on days with me and 2 part-time girls. But they contract, it's all about money. What they do is they contract out as a company now. If there's a complaint with the cleaning, they come to me, then I go to the company, and then the company from there on. It's understaffed, but it's also, we have machines now. Like the old days, we didn't have a floor machine, so we had to wash all the halls. They just drive it down the floor, like modern equipment too.
So as we now know, Mr. Leitch is doing a lot for this school, and mostly on his own too. It's certainly a lot more work than the average student would be aware of. But that brings us to another point. Should students be more aware? It doesn't exactly seem like many students know or care about our custodial staff, judging by the amount of garbage and mess that's left around the building. And even excluding that, there's still very little knowledge about Mr. Leitch's work from students in general. This begs the question, is the work of Mr. Leitch and other custodians underappreciated?
Oh, totally. Like every day, you'll see spills, like countless spills every day, and people are just like, "Oh yeah, we'll just get Mr. Leitch to clean it up."
I guess what goes on a student's head is they don't care to throw stuff on the ground, and then they'll just expect someone to clean it up.
I mean, you see Mr. Leitch in the cafeteria, so you see him cleaning there, you might see him in the halls. But, you know, students, when they're in their classes, when you're in biology, you're not aware of what he's doing.
I think anytime you get 1,200, 1,300 people in a building, the role of any one specific person isn't always well known by the hundreds and hundreds of others who don't interact with that person. So, but I know that I hope we don't take him for granted. I know in the office we certainly know how much work he does.
But what does Mr. Leitch feel about being underappreciated?
You know something? No, I actually spent the last couple of years, kids have been buying me coffees, coming up, talk to me. No, I think I love this school and I love the kids. I don't have any problem with that. Kids are kids, teenagers are teenagers. They make a mess and then they clean it up. Some do, some don't. But 90% of them, I've never had a problem.
And after all this time, what does Mr. Leitch think about his job in general?
No, I enjoy this job.
Okay,
I'm
that's
tell you something right now. It turned into a good job. Years ago when I took it, there was no money but the benefits, but now it's a well-paid job. Like I say, I'm the only guy that works for the board. You know, you make 50 grand a year, a little bit of overtime, and and I don't hate going to work. I'll put it that way. I worked at, like I said, I worked as a mechanic. I worked at Collier Road, picking paint orders one time. This is way better. If I could do it over again, I might get more education, but I still like this job.
Is that the same advice for your students right now?
Well, you guys stay in school, enjoy school as long as you can. I didn't take the benefits of going to school. I played a lot of hockey and sports now, but I just, for some, what it is that I'm not making excuses. I mean, I don't know how far this goes, but when I was 15, my mother had a stroke. She was 30 years old. And I was 15 on my own. Who goes to school, right? Didn't have to. I wouldn't listen to anybody. My dad was working afternoons. I had 2 older brothers that left. So basically, I've been on my own since I was 15. So, like you make mistakes, right? And one mistake was not staying in school. But I lucked out. I got a good job.
So as you can see, Mr. Leitch is very positive about his job, and is really a positive man in general. People may not always know what he does, but he doesn't seem to mind. But this great positivity from Mr. Leitch isn't just shown at work, but in all aspects of his life, where his positivity turns to kindness towards others. As we learned from him during our interview, Mr. Leitch is a foster parent, and has been for some time.
Well, what we did is I have what it is we've been doing it for about 20 years. I got probably 20 kids that go into our house. I have a 14-year-old boy that I adopted because we got him when he was 8 months old. We were supposed to have him for the week. What it is, we're emergency foster home, right? What they do is when something happens, they would call us and we'd take a kid. Well, I had Nikki, Patricia, they're 20, 21. She stayed 1, 6 years, 4 years. And Peter, he was 8 months old when we got him. What happened was we had him for a year and they're going to send him to Newfoundland to his grandparents. Couldn't read or write. We hired a lawyer, took it to court, and we won it, and now I adopted him. So I have 2 girls. I have a daughter, 30, 25-year-old daughter, and a 14-year-old boy.
And the thing that I find is really, I don't want to say impressive, because admirable maybe, is even after his foster kids have become adult age, they still call him dad, and he still has an interest in their life.
And we keep in touch, like a lot of them go back into homes or group homes. And I have the 2 girls, Patricia and Nikki, they call me dad. They still come over and they're 20 and 21.
And so I always admire the fact that he gives of his time and money and home and his own personal stress. Like when something is going on in those kids' lives, he feels it and he advocates just as much as any parent would. And I find that a very admirable thing about him. So if he ever needs a favor from me, I'm only happy to help, because he's helping lots of other people in this world.
It's obvious now that the caretaker of this school, Mr. Leitch, is much more than any of us originally thought. He's an important part of our school and its history that many of us hardly ever take any notice of, let alone talk to. So the next time you see Mr. Leitch, whether it's in a hallway, a classroom, or anywhere in the school, say hi to him, because we guarantee he'll say hi back, and it might just make all that he does for you and this school seem a little more appreciated.